So welcome back to this week's video interview, and this week I've got a really exciting interview for you, and that's because this gentleman, Stephen Burns, set up his business during COVID-19, which I think is marvellous. And I have to say, if you look back on the previous recession, some of the most successful businesses were set up back then. So I guess that's an opportunity for you, Steve. So Steve is the Director of IronMarket Risk Management here in Staffordshire. So Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi Carrie-Anne, thanks very much for the introduction.
You're welcome.
I'll admit straight away, it wasn't planned for us to start the business in the middle of COVID-19. We are trying to take some positives out of it though. Like you said, some good businesses have actually been formed during hard times, and I think it's made us focus on what we're going to do differently for our clients to actually look after them. And I think what at the moment has actually made it really important for businesses to actually consider how they're being looked after by the broker, and actually understanding that their insurance program actually protects them as a business.
No, and do you know what? And I like the idea that you said there. You're going to try and make sure you do things right for your customer base, because I think there's probably a lot of area for movement in your sector, and if you can take a positive away from doing this within difficult times, hopefully it'll add some real value.
100%. I think the problem with our industry is that we've been guilty in the past that we concentrate a lot on price and actually trying to save clients money.
Right.
What a broker should be doing and how we are going to work with our clients, that we're actually an extension to the business.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance is there to protect you as a business and protect you to actually recover from problems happening like fires, storms, all that kind of thing. So make sure that we are an extension to a business to actually understand what they need and actually providing the right covers. But then also making sure we're competitive as well, because obviously price is still important. Primary view when it comes to insurance is actually protecting the business the right way.
Yeah, and I can imagine potentially when it does come to, say, difficult times like this, would business insurance be an area that businesses might try to reduce the outgoings on, do you think? Would this be one of the cost bases that a business might try to reduce if a renewal was coming up very quickly?
I think in the past, I would say that was probably the right way that a lot of businesses were looking at it. There's a few different things going on in the industry at the moment, so we're actually coming into what we call a hard market, and this was happening before COVID hit the world. And what that basically means is that the insurance market is actually becoming more difficult to place insurance for different types of businesses. There's different reasons, which will take longer than our discussions today to talk about, but reduced insurers in the market, a change in appetite with insurers, actually being a bit more careful with the clients. So actually premiums are going to be going up over the next few years. It's important to actually get the right broker involved with you. But yeah, certainly in the past, a lot of businesses were very much price focused on use of insurance costs, where, going back to what I said before, the primary reason to look at your insurances is to get the covers right first, and actually look at it that it's there to protect your business so that it can carry on going if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of affinity there with the way that businesses are trying to move forward, in the sense that partnering with a supplier to ensure that, like you said, and we take the same approach here, I think you do need to become an extension of one of your customer base, so you can truly get involved and actually feel like a partnership and not just a supplier, that potentially is just providing a service and then moving on. It's that after sales, it's working together long term, isn't it? Yeah,
insurance has always been a bit of a last resort for businesses to think about. Whereas if they're thinking of doing a change within their business, we should be at the forefront of those decisions making to actually understand how that business is going to change, and then give advice on how that could affect their insurance covers, and actually making sure that the insurance policies move and adapt to how that business is changing as well.
Yeah, so I can imagine that's really important now as well, because so many businesses must have changed in the last few months and have needed to adapt, what they're doing or how they might have been affected. Have you, and that brings me on to a first question actually, have you seen, an increase in the risk to businesses over the last few months?
I don't think risk has changed drastically over the last few months of business. COVID-19's going to be an historic event that people didn't predict it was going to have this on the global economy, not just in the UK. There's things going on in the background with the FCA that's looking into whether some covers should be made clearer with insurers and their policy wording. So again, it's a completely separate topic to talk about.
Yeah. We'll add that to the list, shall we? That'll be another time. Yeah.
Once we know what the FCA have decided with the insurance, what's right and wrong. So it's more thinking about how businesses view their exposures at the moment, and hopefully COVID-19 will make some companies sit back and actually think, right, okay, we couldn't have predicted that, but what the business are exposed, and can we predict if something could go wrong there? Are we able to protect ourselves with an insurance cover or insurance product to limit those exposures, really?
Yeah, no, that sounds sensible. I think it being able to plan for future and think about risk, I think is key, whereas lots of businesses perhaps don't even consider it and think, well, this could happen in the future. We might have all been caught out a little bit by COVID, I think, and maybe it'll put into people's mindset, actually, if we partner with the right insurance broker, the right insurance firm, we should be able to protect ourselves long term for the unknown. Would that be reasonable to think?
Yeah, it's going back to what we talked about before, that the business and the insurance broker should be working together to actually understand what those exposures are, and then the insurance broker goes away to find the solutions. It's not always going to be cost effective. Sometimes that conversation needs to be had where a broker will say to the business, this is where you've got an area of exposure, this is the product that will cover that exposure of it. And it's down to that business owner then to evaluate whether that exposure is big enough to warrant the premium or whatever it is that the solution is with the insurance. But again,
of course,
should be there to explain the pros and cons from it.
Yeah, and I think that's where the personal element comes into it, doesn't it? That actually you feel like you can ring up a broker and actually have a real conversation with them.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
And not just be a computer-generated process, maybe. I think we've got to remember the human factor in these issues, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. 100% relationship-led is the way clients should be working.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I was interested when I started to look on the website and look through bits and bobs with regards to your background. When is the best time for a business to perhaps review their policy? Because I can imagine people just come up to the very close to the expiration date and think, oh, that I need to do that. A little bit like perhaps a normal everyday insurance policy. Yeah. Whereas for businesses, surely, if you're starting to think about your future and think about potential risk elements or areas of growth for the business, at what point should you be talking to your insurance broker about a renewal?
Yeah, this will vary depending on the type of trade and industry that you're in and what type
of
I would say as a very minimum you should be looking at least 6 weeks in advance of your renewal date. That's to give your broker enough time to actually understand your risk and go to market. But I would suggest that would be for more straightforward insurances. So if you think of things like shops and office type risks.
Right, okay.
Anything that's a bit more complex where it actually probably needs a site visit with the broker, probably look at maybe 3 months in advance. And then there's some industries out there that are going to struggle with insurances at the moment, and especially if you give advice or you provide a service where you need professional indemnity cover, that part of the industry is going through a really, really difficult time at the moment. And we're actually suggesting with some industries, possibly up to 4 or 5 months before they're due for renewal.
Wow.
Just to make sure that fact find process can be done properly and that the broker can understand they need to do for the client, and then actually go out to the market and get the right insurers in place to look at it. So if you're involved in things like the building industry and you need design and construct professional indemnity cover, and there's not that many markets out there at the moment that are offering the right covers.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
A good 4 to 5 months leading is really needed to get the right in place at the right cost. So it does vary on the industry, but I would say the earliest you can think about it, the better nowadays.
And that extended lead time, is that since COVID? Has that got anything to do with COVID, or is that just the marketplace right now for your industry?
Just the marketplace and how it's been the last 12 to 18 months anyway, yes.
Yeah. And do you as a business specialise in any specific sectors, or are you quite varied in the range of businesses you support?
The great thing about the Cheshire and Stoke-on-Trent areas is it's so varied with the type of industries and businesses and the size of businesses that it's very difficult to specialise in a certain area.
Okay.
I hate to admit it, but I've been in the insurance industry for just over 20-ish years now.
I like the ish.
Especially over the past, probably say 10 years, I've been exposed to quite a lot of different industries and a lot of different businesses, which has given me that experience now to actually be confident to look after any type of company, really.
Yeah, and I think there's a time and place for niching down, isn't there? But I can imagine in your sector, it's good to have a more generalist view of sectors so that you can support the variety and size of businesses that we have here, you know, in Staffordshire and Cheshire. Because, you know, we have those multinationals, don't we? But we also have some really interesting SMEs that are coming through, and I think they would be really interesting to partner with.
Definitely. And the good thing is we've joined up with a network of insurers to actually make sure that we've got the right placement for all these different industries as well.
Right, okay.
So I don't really come across any businesses where we're going to struggle to actually find the right covers for them at the right price.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good selling point, is that you have that ability to, you know, offer advice across a wide range of sectors. What in terms of, like, say, why a business should review their insurance, you know, would you have like 2 or 3, you know, kind of key points as to why they should, so that, you know, if someone's thinking, maybe I need to relook at this, it would actually encourage them to go ahead and do it?
Going back to a couple of the points we've already talked about, it's actually making sure that you understand what exposures you have as a business, and then actually making sure that your broker understands that, so that they can go out to market to get the right covers in place for you. A lot of companies don't think about things, but where there's new emerging risks like cyber insurance is a great example, where pretty much every business out there will have an exposure, but not businesses at the moment understand what that exposure is. So again, it's down to the broker to actually explain that in the right way, and the right costings in place to actually help the client make that decision. Also, going back to the fact that we are coming into this hardened market, so it is harder to place insurance for different businesses, and actually the cost is going to be increase at least significantly most of the cases. So it's actually important to get out there as early as possible and have the right broker looking at the right insurance companies for you. Yeah,
I guess if time is of the essence there, isn't it? Because you can do that research piece, whereas if you're not giving your broker enough time, sadly they will have to skim the market, won't they? You know, whereas if they've got that extra lead time, they've got those extra number of weeks, really then I would hope that you would be able to come back with more options and more price points, because, you know, kind of you want the best cover, but clearly, like you said, price is important. It is for everyone when they're buying, isn't it?
Yeah, we've experienced situations in the past where insurance companies it's been easy for them to actually just look at a price and actually undercut that price without understanding the risk.
Right.
Insurance companies now will turn around to us and say, we've not got enough time to work on this. So they are actually trying to understand the risk that they're quoting on in a lot more detail. So we are having insurance companies actually turning around saying they're not going to quote because they don't have enough time to look at that risk. So again, it's going back to that importance of speaking to your broker to understand when is the best time to start the whole renewal process, really.
Yeah, I can imagine it being one of those relationships that really you shouldn't forget about, even though you've got, let's say, 12 months cover. You shouldn't just be thinking about it like, say, your car insurance, because you can pretty much do that overnight, can't you? You know, this is your business. You've got to protect your business, haven't you? And, you know, I think especially when you talk about the cyber there, I was chatting to a cyber executive in a previous video, and he was saying that, you know, they're seeing an increasing number of risks in the last few months. So I can imagine that is quite an important factor for people, or will be in the coming months, as the market settles. Is there anything else that you would suggest is important for them to review as part of their business insurance, apart from coming to you early and giving you that time period?
It's just making sure that you understand what you need in place as an insurance package to protect your business, and it's having that constant dialogue with your broker to make sure that you're keeping them up to date with how your business changes. For example, I always make sure that I have quarterly meetings with my client, no matter what business they're in or what size that they are, even if it's just a 10-minute phone call, just to make sure that things are still okay, nothing drastically. So actually, when we come up to that stage where we need to start the renewal process, it's not a surprise.
Yes.
Up to that to actually understand when it needs to start, and what details are needed to start that process as well.
Yeah, I think that's key to that keeping in touch activity, isn't it? That's so vital in business, but I can imagine many people forget,
Yeah.
and I think businesses would be guilty of that too. Say they see your name popping up and thinking, actually, I don't need him right now, but if you had that constant dialogue, you potentially are removing part of the risk. That's how it looks from me looking in, rather than trying to turn a situation round very last minute where you're not giving you enough time to actually do the research.
Yeah, I've seen clients in the past when they've been with other brokers that when we've actually got to the renewal stage and you're asking them different questions, that it makes them realise that they've forgotten to tell the previous broker that they've changed something,
Right.
some extra
Yeah.
or extra equipment, and if there was a claim in that point, it's going to affect the business if they don't get enough payment made out from the insurers.
Yeah, of course. But then if you are keeping that dialogue, like you say, every quarter, you're going to have those natural updates from the business, aren't you? Because you'll be asking those questions and it'll just be a constant conversation, rather than surprise at the end. And no one likes a surprise, do they?
Not anymore, not at the moment.
Not with business insurance either.
Yeah.
You need to feel safe that you've got the right support, don't you, at the end of the day? And I don't think you can get that unless you keep talking.
Definitely. It's all about keeping that relationship going and understanding between the two businesses.
Yeah, and I think just by chatting to you today, you can tell that that's quite key to you, and I can imagine that is a differentiator for you in your marketplace. I'm sure, like with many businesses, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. In terms of how business is formed, relationships are developed, and hopefully that's going to be a key strength for you moving forward as you push on with your risk management business.
Definitely.
Yeah. So no, that's great. I've really enjoyed that, and I hope that we've added some value to the network that we're both talking to right now.